This was the most boisterous, the longest, the most partisan speech I've ever heard a president give in this kind of setting, and I go back about maybe 50 years on this. I also think it may have been the most effective. I mean, if you ever doubted that Donald Trump is the colossus, the political colossus of our time and our nation, this night and this speech should have put that to rest. The Democrats seem to be falling into trap after trap after trap as he recognized these people and celebrated the people he pointed to in the gallery and their stories, while the Democrats sat glumly on their hands through all of that. It was a terrible look. Al Green's attempt to disrupt the speech was a bad look for the Democrats. This was I think, politically speaking, this was pretty powerful stuff, as powerful as I think I've heard.
Brit Hume's analysis of President Trump's speech to the joint session of Congress shows that supporters like him are willing to acknowledge the disgusting and divisive nature of everything he does and then immediately celebrate it as something great. Shameful actions have become what we revere in this country.
It has been quite a night. You should have been in the chamber with us. President Donald Trump gave a fantastic State of the Union address, laid out the accomplishments that he and his administration have made in this first 6 weeks, and he built out that vision for America, where he intends to see our country go. I thought it was wonderful that he took time to recognize people, that he took time to honor individuals, and that he set a path forward. What a great night for Make America Great Again.
Yeah, and Senator Blackburn did her part in characterizing Trump's vindictive and extremely partisan speech as something great or somehow helpful to the country, despite her avoidance of her constituents back home in Tennessee. But if you believe her claim that you should have been there, you may have wished that you were removed as quickly as Representative Al Green was.
Mr. Green, take your seat. Take your seat, sir. Take your seat. Finding that members continue to engage in willful and concerted disruption of proper decorum, the chair now directs the Sergeant-at-Arms to restore order. Remove this gentleman from the chamber.
Yeah, after only listening to him claim to have a mandate to destroy the country, Representative Green refused to sit down or stop telling the truth, that no such mandate exists. And considering he no longer had to listen to the next 2 hours of hatred, it turns out he was the real winner of this night. This is how it all went down.
We won the popular vote by big numbers and won counties in our country. And won counties in our country, 2,700 to 525, on a map that reads almost completely red for Republican. Now, for the first time in modern history, more Americans believe that our country is headed in the right direction than the wrong direction. In fact, so its single largest one-month gain ever recorded.
Mr. President.
A 41-point jump.
Members are directed to uphold and maintain decorum in the House and to cease any further disruptions. That's your warning.
Nancy Mace and Marjorie Taylor Greene were standing up, shouting and pointing at Al Green like some NFL fans sitting in cheap seats after a scuffle breaks out in their section. It really didn't take very long for this scummy president to capture an entire political party and finish its transformation into a mob of fanatics rooting for a touchdown.
The president said he had a mandate. And I was making it clear to the president that he has no mandate to cut Medicaid. I have people who are very fearful. These are poor people, and they have only Medicaid in their lives when it comes to their health care. And I want him to know that his budget calls for deep cuts in Medicaid. He needs to save Medicaid, protect it. We need to raise the cap on Social Security. There's a possibility that it's going to be hurt, and we've got to protect Medicare. These are the safety net programs that people in my congressional district depend on. And this president seems to care less about them and more about the number of people that he can remove from the various programs that have been so helpful to so many people.
Is yelling during speech the best way to get that across?
It is the best way to get it across to a person who uses his incivility against our civility. He is a person who has consistently been used incivility against civility.
It's a perfect answer to that question of whether or not yelling during the speech gets the point across about Medicaid and Social Security. Yeah, Britt Hume and this MAGA party have been celebrating Trump's incivility and hatred as shaking things up and not being politically correct. But when Representative Green refused to sit down to a litany of harmful lies for the sake of his constituents, reporters wonder if he should not be so boisterous, if they're walking into authoritarianism with big smiles on their faces.
I'm willing to suffer whatever punishment is available to me. I didn't say to anyone, don't punish me. I've said I'll accept the punishment, but it's worth it to let people know that there are some of us who are going to stand up against this president's desire to cut Medicaid, Medicare, and Social Security.
Is the only punishment that you were kicked out, sir? Is there something?
I don't know. Whatever the punishment is, I'm not fighting the punishment. This is about the people who are being punished by virtue of losing their health care. This is the richest country in the world, and we have people who don't have good health care. We've got to do better. And now we're about to cut Medicaid, which is for poor people. Health care has become wealth care for many people.
Watching a congressman actually represent his constituents is becoming more and more of a startling sight to these reporters. Because as the MAGA party continues to prepare their budget that so far does in fact target Medicaid, Social Security, and Medicare, those that have always stood on principles and pointed it out will be seen as the only truth tellers left.
As you heard tonight, President Trump has been very effective in creating what I would call a parallel universe for his supporters. A set of ideas that either have no basis in reality or in the great scheme of things are nowhere near the most important concerns of the American people. And one way that he does that is through the concept of the big lie, and boy, did we hear that tonight. You say something that is grossly false, say it over and over again, and have right-wing social media blast it out endless times until people actually believe it.
It's a simple strategy that played out right in front of our faces. Once these guys are faced with the reality of their agenda that actually destroys Americans' lives, they change the subject and seek protection from the echo chamber in right-wing spaces. It's all talk with zero responsibility for what they stand for.
A lot of money is paid out to people because it just keeps getting paid and nobody does, and it really hurts Social Security and hurts our country. 1.3 million people from ages 150 to 159, and over 130,000 people, according to the Social Security databases, are age over 160 years old. We have a healthier country than I thought, Bobby. Including, to finish, 1,039 people between the ages of 220 and 229, one person between the age of 240 and 249, and one person is listed at 360 years of age. More than 100 years older than our country.
So let's be clear about that. Well over 99% of Social Security checks are going out to people who earned those checks. 70 million Americans. Nobody who was 150 years old or 200 years old or 300 years old is receiving Social Security checks. And on the lies go.
Man, it's like telling a group of 5-year-olds that Santa Claus doesn't exist and then watch them try to figure out how that their main belief system is all fake. The barrage of fairy tales and scary campfire stories have kidnapped so many people's brains that they scoff at the obvious swampy takeover of our government by a group of billionaires that MAGA would grab their guns against if their authoritarian leader wasn't the one that was legitimizing them.
I will tell you exactly why Trump had very little to say about the real crises facing the working class of this country. Think back 6 weeks ago when Trump was inaugurated for his second term as president, just 6 weeks ago. Standing right behind him were the three wealthiest men in this country, Mr. Musk, Mr. Bezos, and Mr. Zuckerberg. And standing behind them were 13 other billionaires who Trump had nominated to head major government agencies. Many of these same billionaires, including Musk, were in the Capitol tonight listening to that speech. In other words, it is there for all to see. The Trump administration is not hiding it. The Trump administration is a government of the billionaire class, by the billionaire class, and for the billionaire class. Notwithstanding some of their rhetoric, this is a government that could care less about ordinary Americans and the working families of our country. My friends, we are no longer moving toward oligarchy. We are living in an oligarchic society.